Today, based on John chapter 19, verse 30 through chapter 20, verse 16, let's understand together the sermon, Burying Jesus, the Glory of God.
You know, the Apostle Paul, he basically boils the entire gospel message down to these three core truths. Christ died, he was buried, and he was resurrected. Now, the sermon we're exploring today says we shouldn't just see these as three separate things on a checklist. No, we should see them as one single, powerful, unified event.
And to help us get our heads around this, the preacher offers this really simple but powerful analogy. He says the gospel is like a sandwich. You've got the death and the resurrection as the two slices of bread. But what's in the middle? The burial. Think about it. We talk all the time about the crucifixion and the resurrection, but how often do we really focus on the burial? The whole point is you can't have the sandwich without what's in the middle. It is absolutely essential. So here's the roadmap for how we're going to unpack this incredible message. We'll start with those core truths, then really zoom in on that overlooked burial. And then we'll see how that one act unlocks this idea of personal transformation and, get this, a new beginning for the entire world. Okay, first things first. For any of this to matter, for the gospel to have any power at all, that first slice of the sandwich, the death of Jesus, has to be a cold, hard, undeniable fact. We're not talking about a swoon or a coma. We're talking about a complete and total death. And the scripture is incredibly specific about this. You have a Roman soldier, basically an expert in death, who pierces Jesus' side with a spear just to make absolutely sure. The text then says blood and water flowed out, a detail that, to anyone back then, was the final absolute proof that life was gone. So that first truth is nailed down beyond a shadow of a doubt. Jesus was truly dead. And that brings us right back to the middle of our sandwich, the burial. Today's sermon explains that this wasn't some minor footnote. It was this incredible act of courage and absolute devotion carried out by two very unlikely men at a time when pretty much everyone else had run away in fear. The sheer scale of what they did is just staggering. Nicodemus brought 30 kilograms, that's about 75 pounds, of incredibly expensive spices. I mean, to put that into perspective for you, just a week before this, Mary Magdalene's extravagant act of worship used about 300 grams of perfume. Nicodemus brought 100 times that amount. It's almost unimaginable. So let's just see how this unfolds. First, you've got Joseph of Arimathea. He's a secret disciple, right? And he risks everything, his reputation, his powerful position, maybe even his life, to go publicly to the Roman governor and ask for Jesus' body. Then Nicodemus shows up with that mind-blowing quantity of spices, and together, in broad daylight, with everyone watching and judging, they give Jesus a burial fit for a king, wrapping his body and placing it in a brand new tomb. This was a human act of tremendous love and unbelievable risk. But here's where the sermon makes a huge pivot. Up to this point, everything we've seen about the burial was a human affair, but now we're told to look behind the curtain to see the divine act that was really going on. God the Father was not just sitting back and watching this happen. Remember this prayer Jesus made, "Father, glorify your name"? Well, the sermon connects this prayer directly to the crucifixion and the burial. These events weren't just some tragedy playing out. Oh no, they were the very stage on which God's glory was being revealed. The Father was answering his Son's prayer right then and there. So after the Sabbath, Mary Magdalene discovers the stone is rolled away. She, of course, panics and runs to get the disciples, thinking the body's been stolen. Peter and John literally race to the tomb. But what did they actually find when they got there? The scene inside just makes the mystery even deeper. This was no grave robbery. I mean, think about it. Thieves would be messy. They'd be in a rush. They wouldn't stop to carefully unwrap a body and then neatly fold up the face cloth. The burial linens were there, but the body they were wrapped around had simply vanished. And here is the absolute core insight from today's sermon. There were two burials. First, the human burial by Joseph and Nicodemus. But second, there was a divine burial by God himself. See, a human burial leaves behind remains, bones, dust. But a divine burial, that's totally different. This wasn't decay, it was erasure. God stepped in and caused the body of Jesus to completely, utterly disappear. And this just flips our whole understanding of God's glory. We usually think of glory as, a brilliant, shining light. But the preacher redefines it for us. True glory is a power so absolute, so total, that it can take something that exists and make it not exist. It's the ultimate power of erasure. And that erasure is what makes new creation possible. So this whole idea of divine erasure isn't just some interesting historical event. According to the sermon, it has deep, profound, and personal meaning for every single person of faith. Now, this is such a key insight from the sermon. We all love the story of Genesis, right? God creating the entire universe out of nothing. But the tomb shows us the other side of that awesome power, God's ability to create by first making something that already exists, like our old self, our sin, our failures, into nothing. He clears the slate completely. And this is why Paul could write these incredible words. How can the old just pass away so completely? Because it's been buried, not just in a human way, but by God himself. It has been divinely erased, which allows something genuinely, truly new to take its place. And this brings us right back to the center of that gospel sandwich. The sermon argues that this is the deep, powerful meaning behind Christian baptism. It's not just about getting wet. It's a real participation in Jesus' burial. It's the moment our old self is buried and erased by the glory of God so that we can rise up as a new creation. This is exactly why the burial is so critical to the entire story. Okay, now this sermon takes this one final, massive step further. The burial of Jesus wasn't just about him, and it wasn't even just about individual believers. No, it was a declaration about the fate of the entire universe. The preacher points out this incredible pattern in the scriptures. God's glory is revealed in these acts of burial that lead to new creation. The first time, he glorified his name by burying the old wicked world in the waters of the flood. The second time, just as he promised, was the burial of his own son, the Creator himself. And this points forward to a third and final time, when the current heavens and earth will be buried by fire. So here's the ultimate message from today's sermon. The burial of Jesus is God's final definitive statement. If the one who made literally everything was himself buried and erased by the glory of the Father, then that means everything he made, this entire old creation, is also destined for burial. The old has to completely pass away to make room for the new. And that leaves us with this final, powerful question to really think about. If the burial of Jesus shows us a God whose glory is so powerful it can completely erase the old, our past failures, our sin, and eventually the entire cosmos, what does that mean for the future? What kind of unimaginably new thing can truly begin when the old isn't just gone by decay, but by a total divine erasure?